In this video, we delve into the dark truth behind some of the most disturbing experiments that were performed throughout history. From psychological mind control tests to horrific drug trials, we uncover the horrifying stories that they never wanted you to know. I stood outside the nondescript building, my heart pounding with a mix of trepidation and curiosity. It was a cold, moonless night, and an eerie silence hung heavy in the air. I took a deep breath and reminded myself why I was here: to participate in a groundbreaking psychological experiment known as the Milgram Experiment. Little did I know that this night would become a descent into darkness, testing the limits of human nature and revealing the depths of our capacity for cruelty. As I entered the dimly lit room, I noticed a group of people waiting nervously, their eyes filled with anticipation. We were greeted by a stern-faced doctor who introduced himself as Dr. Williams. His authoritative demeanor sent a shiver down my spine, but I suppressed my unease, reminding myself that this was all in the name of science. Dr. Williams explained the purpose of the experiment: to investigate the effects of punishment on learning. He told us that we would be assigned the role of a teacher and paired with a learner who would be in an adjacent room. Our task was to administer electric shocks to the learner whenever they answered questions incorrectly. The shocks would increase in intensity with each mistake. My heart sank as the true nature of the experiment became clear. I had expected discomfort, but the thought of causing harm to another human being sent a wave of dread through me. However, I couldn't bring myself to back out. The anticipation in the room seemed contagious, and the sense of collective responsibility loomed over us like a heavy cloud. Each of us was given a sample shock to experience the sensation, ensuring we understood the impact on the learner. It was an unpleasant jolt, causing my hand to tremble involuntarily, but it was just the beginning. I was led into a small room where the learner sat, his face obscured by shadows. The experimenter reminded me to remain firm and continue administering shocks regardless of the learner's pleas for mercy. The weight of the situation bore down on me, and I felt a knot forming in my stomach. As the experiment commenced, the learner was asked a series of questions. With each incorrect response, I pressed the button, sending a surge of electricity through his body. The learner's cries of pain reverberated through the walls, gnawing at my conscience, yet Dr. Williams urged me to continue, his voice devoid of compassion. With each shock, the intensity increased and the learner's cries grew louder. My hands trembled and a cold sweat coated my forehead. Doubt and guilt consumed me, but the pressure to obey weighed heavier than ever. I fought against my instincts, convincing myself that it was for the sake of science, that the learner's suffering was necessary. But as the experiment progressed, something changed. The cries of the learner began to sound less human, more primal. It was as if the pain had transformed him into a tormented soul, a mere vessel of anguish. The room itself seemed to pulsate with an energy, an ominous force that grew stronger with every passing moment. My mind grew cloudy, and the line between reality and the experiment blurred. The learner's screams echoed in my nightmares, haunting my every waking moment. Sleep became an elusive concept for fear of what awaited me in the realm of dreams. Days turned into nights, and nights merged into an unending darkness. I found myself questioning my own sanity as the torment of the experiment etched itself into the depths of my soul. The walls closed in on me, whispering malevolently, as if the very building itself conspired to drive me to the brink of madness. Eventually, the experiment came to an end. The learner was revealed to be unharmed, a mere actor pretending to suffer. I was relieved, yet scarred by the indelible mark left on my psyche. I had participated in a chilling exploration of human obedience, a journey that revealed the capacity for evil within us all. To this day, the memories of that experiment haunt me. The agonized cries of the learner continue to reverberate in my mind, a constant reminder of the darkness that lies within the human heart. The Milgram experiment may have concluded, but its legacy lives on, reminding us of the depths of our capacity for cruelty and the eternal struggle between morality and obedience. The Russian Sleep Experiment. Part 1. The experiment begins. It was the year 1947, and I was a young scientist working in a top-secret laboratory in Soviet Russia. The government had assigned us a highly classified experiment that aimed to explore the effects of prolonged sleep deprivation on the human mind and body. Little did I know that I was about to witness something beyond the realms of science, something truly horrifying. 5 subjects, all political prisoners, were chosen for this twisted experiment. They were promised their freedom in exchange for their participation. The chamber where the experiment would take place had been soundproofed and equipped with surveillance cameras to monitor the subjects. We scientists were excited yet apprehensive about what would unfold. As the first day began, we carefully observed the subjects. They seemed normal, if not a little anxious about what was to come. The chamber was adequately furnished with basic amenities, and we had provided them with enough food and water to last for a month. We had theorized that their behavior would become increasingly erratic as time passed, due to the prolonged sleep deprivation. Part 2. The descent into madness days turned into nights, and the subjects had already been awake for a week. They were becoming more restless, their eyes bloodshot and their bodies frail. Yet they refused to sleep. They spoke in hushed whispers, discussing strange visions and experiencing hallucinations that played tricks on their minds. I watched in horror as the subjects' mental states deteriorated further. One of them began screaming uncontrollably, convinced that he saw horrifying creatures crawling on the chamber walls. Another subject started ripping chunks of flesh from his own arm, claiming that invisible insects were burrowing beneath his skin. The chamber was engulfed in chaos and terror. Part 3. The inhuman transformation. 2 weeks had passed since the start of the experiment. By now, the subjects had lost all touch with reality. They had descended into a state of pure madness, driven to the brink of insanity by the relentless sleep deprivation. Their eyes had turned a dull shade of yellow, and their bodies were covered in festering wounds that refused to heal. What happened next defied all rationality. The subjects, driven by a primal instinct, began to harm themselves in unimaginable ways. They tore their own flesh, gouged out their eyes, and pulled out their own organs, showing no signs of pain or remorse. It was as if they had become completely detached from their physical bodies. I could no longer bear witness to the atrocities unfolding before my eyes, but I couldn't tear myself away. It was a horrifying paradox, a morbid fascination that kept me rooted in place, unable to look away from the grotesque spectacle unfolding in the chamber. Part 4. The final moments. The final days of the experiment were a living nightmare. The subjects, reduced to mere shells of their former selves, displayed superhuman strength and resilience. Their bodies had transformed into abominable masses of decaying flesh and bones, and still they refused to die. As the experiment neared its gruesome end, the subjects, driven by an insatiable hunger, turned on each other. They ripped each other apart, devouring flesh and organs as if in a frenzied trance. The walls of the chamber were painted in blood, and the air was heavy with the stench of death. Part 5. The aftermath. The experiment had finally come to an end. The subjects lay lifeless on the blood-soaked floor, their twisted bodies bearing no resemblance to the humans they once were. I was overcome with a deep sense of dread and guilt, for I had been complicit in this horrifying affair. We had failed to achieve our scientific goals, for the experiment had spiraled into an abyss of madness and depravity. The haunting memories of those tortured souls would forever haunt my nightmares, a reminder of the inhumanity that lurked within the darkest corners of our minds. The Russian sleep experiment had revealed a darkness that no one could have anticipated. It was a tale of the limits of the human psyche, a stark reminder of the dangers that lie in the pursuit of knowledge without compassion. And as I looked upon the lifeless bodies of the subjects, I vowed to keep their story hidden from the world, lest it be repeated in some new, unimaginable form.